there are three texting platform types basically. The first one are those which are built into your ATS. So you would purchase an ATS that already has a texting functionality. So the biggest ATS that I know of that would do this would be iCIMS. So iCIMS purchased this company, TextRecruit, added it onto their system so that their customers would be able to text their candidates through their ATS. I know that another company called TalkPush do this as well, where they provide an ATS to their clients and it's already got that texting functionality built in. So that's a route that you could look in. If you're on iCIMS at the moment, you could get them to give you TextRecruit. I don't know how much extra it costs. Maybe it's an arm and a leg, but hey ho. Or just look up on Google, you know, ATSs that have text functionality, and you'll find a bunch like TalkPush as well. Now, if you don't want to get a new ATS, I know how hard, especially if you're in a big system, working with the systems and the IT and the purchasing to try and buy new software and move everything over, it's going to be difficult. There are a number of platforms which integrate in the ATSs. So for example, this is one called RecText that have a host of, have a host of integrations that that essentially is ATSs that they've partnered with to allow them to build their software into the ATS. So if your ATS is sitting there without a text functionality, don't worry. I would recommend you go and look at RecText. You can see here's some of the ATSs that they've integrated with, or again, just Google recruitment text platforms, and excuse me, you'll see the ones which have the integrations. Third and finally is a separate CRM, and I'm in sort of two minds about this one. On the one hand, I think it's important that you have a platform that you use to market to your candidates constantly, and that doesn't just live in the recruitment process. So if for some reason they lose interest, you want something that's sending them out emails and texts. And you can get a CRM, for example, this is our CRM, ApplyChat ATS, and we put in our target leads in here, and we can send them text through that CRM just en masse or on an individual basis. So you don't have to have an ATS that allows the text integrations to do texting. You can just find a separate platform like ApplyChat ATS, or again, I know I'm giving Google as a lot of these, but really it has to be sort of something that you discover yourself. Google text CRMs and you'll find a host. There's a host over in the world of sales that, for example, HubSpot, that are built to do this. That will be your third option. So to summarize this piece, whenever you're thinking about the platforms, think, do you have an ATS that has texting functionality in it? It might be hiding there. You might not know. If you have iCIMS, I'm sure some of you didn't even know it has texting inside it. Go and look and see if you can add that in, because I think that would be the best, to have everything managed in one place. Secondly, if that's not possible, then another option would be to integrate a platform like RecText into your ATS. So go and look at their website, and I'm not affiliated with them, by the way, so I'm just doing it because I think it's a good platform. It's free to send unlimited text for $35 a month. It's pretty cool. See if you can integrate with them. You can see they've got integrations. If somebody does call the number that's text to them, then it will be forwarded to your phone number. So it's not like you have to be stuck to the computer all day. And they also have a mobile app. So check that out. if you don't have something into your ATS. And the third option would be if you don't have any integrations to your ATS, then you can just simply use a separate SCRM. And there you can see some of the results we have. If you look at so if you look here, we have a conversations tab, and that's a place to manage all the texts. So to recap again, what we've done is spoken a little bit about why you should be doing text. It's scalable, it's free, everyone's on text. That's where nurses are looking at their phone. Whenever you're planning it out, you need to go on this sort of journey where the first thing that you do is decide who the audience is, and then find the platform, and then decide the more complicated stuff, which is the language that you're going to use and the strategies that you're going to use to outreach. And then the platforms, there's 3 types: directly within your ATS, integrated through an API, or a separate CRM that you can use. Now, for my favorite part, I mean, I studied history at university. I love writing and I love marketing, especially. I'm going to talk about the language that you use when sending texts to nurses. This is something that's come up in the interviews I've done with nurses as well, where they tell me that they're bombarded every day with texts from recruiters. And I'm a bit skeptical about that. Like, we get a great response from texting nurses, and I can't see, 7 separate recruiters texting a nurse each day, unless that nurse is looking for a job and is giving her number to 7 different people. I think it's more of a feeling of overwhelm in their inbox from recruiters. And by that, I mean the long message, which is trying to sell them on a role they've never heard of and get them to do something they don't want to do, that really drains them and makes them think less of recruiters. I think that's what's happening too much. And in this section, I want to explain why we need to stop doing that and what we can do better. And we can all experience this as well. I want you to get out your phone and look at the text that you've received. And if there's any particularly bad text from a marketing company or someone trying to sell you stuff, put it in the chat, because every day we receive stuff like this, like poorly written sales content. And whenever we send long, uninspiring text to nurses, they're feeling the same feeling that we feel whenever we receive bad content like that. I'm talking about that classic spammy message. I've got one here. Sale now on, come down and get your 20% discount. Blah, 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 blah. I stop reading because I don't care. So whenever you text candidates, first of all, it needs to be short. So it shouldn't be a long text. It should be at most 3 or 4 lines. The reason for that is people are bombarded by notifications and advertisements every single day, and they just don't have the time to allot to each one uniquely. So whenever you speak, it has to be short and it has to be digestible. Secondly, you need to spark curiosity. Okay, so we need to spark something inside them which makes them curious. Now, you can be a bit sneaky through this. The best one that I've found that works is I put it in the chat there. I just put their name into exclamation marks. If I sent that to you all, I think you all would respond to me and be like, "Who's this? What do you want? Is everything okay?" Like, that's on the dramatic end of the scale that shows where if you do something that is short and is mysterious, you're going to spark a reaction. So I want you to sort of hold that in your mind. I wouldn't do that. Like, it doesn't really lead to many places, but it does get a response, and it does prove that by sparking curiosity, you can trigger people to reply to you. Third point, and I'm going to show you an example after, is make taking action easy. So do not send them a link that goes to that application form on your career site. if that application form is made to be done on a computer by a candidate who's actively chasing that job. We see this a lot as well. We saw one organization, for example, they were doing a career event and they were trying to advertise this. And they said, can you help us advertise it? And they sent us a link to their career site that had an image, a poster saying the event, the time, and the place of the event. No sign up form, no opportunity for them to take people's information. If we send that to a person, like there's no way that they're going to show up. They're just not. If you send them to a website application form that's going to take 30 minutes to do you think someone who's just on their lunch break and just got a text is going to take the time to do that? Like, they're not. Whenever you send someone a text, you need to make that action as easy as possible. You need to make it so easy that someone who's just about to fall asleep and checking their phone before they do it can take action and then fall asleep. Or somebody who whips out their phone when they're on the toilet, they can do it. So don't make it too long and don't make it hard. Finally, which relates to this, like, don't ask for too much as well. So that's kind of the same thing. I want to share with you an example where I can sort of pull those things in. So whenever we see a text on our phone, we don't get the whole text like flash up on the screen. You get a preview at the top which says the first line, and the best thing to do in that sense is to put their name in. So everyone's favorite word is their name with an exclamation mark because it makes it stand out. I would put that in the top line in this example so that their attention is really pulled to their phone. Here you can see it's only 4 lines long. I'm asking an open question again. So I'm not asking, do you want to apply to my job? Because there's not a likelihood that they're just going to jump out of their seat and say yes. I'm asking if they're open to this amazing opportunity. So this is for a home care agency targeting ER nurses. So I'm asking, are you open to this opportunity to improve your life through these 2 things that would do it? So I'm not saying, do you want to apply for the job? I'm saying, are you open to improving your life? Finally, taking action easily. So I'm asking them to share a number. So send me a 1 if it's yes, send me 2 if it's no, send me a 3 if you want me to stop. Whenever they respond, I would phone them, and if they responded to 1, of course, I would phone them and start the conversation there. So really that's a good example. It's going to be different every time, again, depending on who your audience is. You really need to keep that in mind, who's the audience, and then decide what to send to them. Here, ER nurses is my audience. That's because the client wanted to hire ER nurses for their home health agency. That got me thinking, what's going to be the pain point for an ER nurse who hasn't spoken to me before? It's going to be that they might feel tied to the bedside and tied to their manager. Home health purports to not have that as much. And then I'm asking them to quickly share what they want to do. So language is very important in really dictating how many responses you're going to get back whenever you are texting candidates. Finally, number 4, campaign setup. Really quickly on this one, we found that a 7-day campaign with 4 texts works, something which can provide easy calls to action and something that doesn't last for 6 months and they grow to hate you. We find that if you're going to do a long-term thing, you want to do it over email and a little bit on LinkedIn. Texting is really that high impact, low time span and low effort maneuver that you can do to get a bulk of candidates or a bulk of people who say yes in the door and then reach out to them and sell them on the role. So texting really is about getting someone to raise their hand and say yes, and then following that up with a longer conversation, rather than trying to put everything into the text. So I've got a lot of questions in the chat here, and I know I haven't answered any of them during the call, so I'm going to put that open on my screen and just go through the Q&A. If anybody has anything else they want to follow up on or ask, Patrick is going to put the link to our group in the chat as well, so you can go in and follow up with me or follow up with Patrick and ask additional questions. I'm going to take a question from Brian here, which says, you mentioned calling them if you get a REST response. Is that directly after, or do you send a link to schedule a call? So I would do that as soon as I see the response. So the reason for that is really, why not? If they've expressed their interest, and if it's someone that hasn't expressed interest recently, you know, that if you think of it as like a wave, they've expressed interest, but it's going to go down pretty quickly as they go about their day. So you really need to catch the high and phone them whenever they have you in their mind and they've said yes, and start building on those yeses rather than waiting. Of course, if they don't pick up, I would text them the link, that naturally. But if they've said yes, it comes with anything. Like if someone's just applied, I would call them as soon as possible to try and jump on them. Nora, we sent that text 2 weeks ago, so I cannot answer. Nora asked how many people were hired from the people who responded to our text. If you join our group, Nora, or add me on LinkedIn, I'll happily let you know in a few weeks whenever that candidate pipeline is played out. Brian says 30% off sale ending tonight is a daily text that he gets. Yeah, and so Brian, that text is like the statement of fact. So this is something which is happening. It doesn't spark curiosity. It isn't relevant to the audience, and I presume that you don't respond to it. So try and everybody, whenever you receive per marketing content or per sales content, channel that energy and think of it as something that can empower you and encourage you to create better content and do better. It's like Patrick and I were at a restaurant last month, and the service was extremely slow. Fair enough, they probably had some problems going on. I'm not angry with them for that, but we said to each other, this is how our clients feel whenever we don't respond to them quick enough, and try and channel that energy that you experience whenever you receive bad service and use it as a realization, so that whenever you do your job as a recruiter, you do better than whoever was serving you bad. Matt Craven says, when you text, you have an established relationship with these nurses, or are they cold texting? So yeah, Matt, it will be dependent on what we're trying to achieve. So if we're trying to broaden the candidate pool of the organization, we would go out and use one of these sites, for example, to scrape the information of those nurses and then put that into the texting system to make them aware of who we are and try and start a conversation. If they're nurses that we do have a relationship with, then we've got them in our ATS and we're sending them content which is trying to get them to take action. So it's like all marketing, where the message needs to really depend on what stage that person is in your pipeline. And whilst you said you ignore all marketing, I think obviously you're at this webinar and we did marketing to you. So that's because we've sort of spoken to you, you've been a guest on the webinar. So we sent that specific message, like, Matt, come along to the webinar. If you were someone that we had never met before, our message would have been a lot colder, and it would have said, are you struggling to hire nurses? 98% of people use their cell phone each day texting during our webinar. So we're sending a specific message because you're colder compared to if you're a a person that we've spoken to before. So Krista says, great mind to think about our own experiences. Yeah, I think with candidates as well, that's very important. And it's just about being an empathetic person, like being a better recruiter, someone who understands how people work, understands what makes people tick, and channeling that energy is going to be useful. So Chris Conrad says, any tips for text bots? I assume you mean like the things that automatically reply, sort of like chatbots. The tips for those for me would be, you want to make it, so we use chatbots a lot. That's why our organization is called Aptly Chat. And I learned from this that you can't make a human out of a chatbot or a text bot. You can only make a marketing funnel. And by that, I mean something which quickly gathers information and then converts someone into a candidate or a lead. So what I sort of strategized upon it was, I want this to be 90% doable by a monkey. So by that, I mean, I want to put as many buttons, multiple choice options in as possible so that somebody can A, do it extremely quickly, and B, not mess it up by typing things. So you can program an AI chatbot and spend 2 years making that. That's great. But whenever you're making a text bot, for example, on your website, it says, what's your qualification? I wouldn't let them type in their response to that. I would make that RN, LPN, CNA, or other. And if they say other, they're put somewhere else. They're not for you. And then they're given the appropriate response. So if you're delving into the more automated side of texting, I would recommend that you use as many buttons as possible, multiple choice options, and keeping it extremely simple rather than trying to replace a recruiter. We've got some more questions. So Jill says, how many candidates can you text at one time with the software you're currently using? So Jill, we're using our own CRM, Aptly Chat ATS. If you want to learn more about it, just connect with me or Patrick on LinkedIn and we can have a chat about it. But we haven't came across a limit on the amount of text we have. The most we've sent out was 7,000 in one go. So with our software, that was how many we sent out. There are rules, so it's not the Wild West. There are rules that stop you sending 300,000 texts in 1 second with the click of the button. With our software, it spreads those texts out across several hours, so we're not violating the carrier rules of how many texts can be sent out per hour. But I haven't come across a software that says, you can only send a certain amount of texts through our system. If anybody has any other questions, put them in. I know there's been a lot. Seamless.ai, I'm not sure are these free. I think they have free trials. The best free option for you is going to be Jessica. It's going to be LinkedIn. I mean, if you add connections on LinkedIn, then you can click on those people's profiles and get their contact information. That will be the free option. I know that those two are pretty low cost, however. We've got some more messages. Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. Unless you want to sort of learn a little bit more about texting, I'll reword that. If you want to learn a little bit more about texting, just again, connect with Patrick or I on LinkedIn and join the Facebook group where we'll be doing some some sort of reviews of this call and going over some of the results we've got. I want to reiterate that I'm not asking you all to go away and text everyone in your database or go away and start sourcing for free text tomorrow. I'm asking you to make a decision in the next couple of days if this is going to be something that you're going to start exploring as an organization, if something's going to be worthwhile, something that you're going to actually do, rather than just another option that sits on the shelf as a possibility. The key to meeting your targets is taking action and trying something, and if it doesn't work, trying something else until you find that thing that does work. So that's what I want your takeaway to be from this call. I will share the presentation with a little summary in our Facebook group and on my LinkedIn, so you can refer back to it and think about it. But I hope that you find this useful and it's sparked some new ideas for your sourcing. And as I mentioned before, if you'd like any advice or help from Patrick or myself, then just connect with us on LinkedIn, or you can stay to the end and we can have a brief chat. But that's it from me. I'm going to hand it back over to Patrick, who's going to close this off. But yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. And we'll hopefully see you at the next one. So Patrick, are you good to go?
Yep, I'm unmuted now. So great, thanks everyone. That was really interesting. Lots of feedback, lots of comments. That's fantastic. As Adam commented or alluded to, we're going to send the recording around to everyone once it's ready. So you can look forward to getting the link to the recording in your inbox. We will have another webinar on nurse recruitment in about 2 weeks. So again, watch for the invitations to that and make sure to follow up. If you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, do that. I put the link in the chat a few minutes ago. And just a reminder, I think we got about 12 people so far from today that joined our Nurse Recruitment's Secrets Facebook group. So feel free to continue doing that. I just put the link in the chat again a moment ago, and we will send you the sheet with the nurse responses on their input on sign-on bonuses. So please join us in the Facebook group. That'd be really great. And lastly, if you're interested in hearing how AppleChat Healthcare can help you source more passive nurse candidates from non-job board channels, please do connect with me on LinkedIn, or I'll also put a link in the chat where you can book right into my calendar and we can have a conversation about that. So I think that's it for now. Again, lots of questions and lots of interest in this. So if anyone wants to stay on and have an additional conversation about texting or about nurse recruitment in general and sourcing passive nurse candidates, please stay on, and Adam and I will be here and we can have a smaller group conversation as well. Thanks everyone. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.